Are the Ravens all about revenge, or are they going to leave that baggage in last year's season? We'll talk about it here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise and Wiggy's ready with his scissors and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Exactly right. It is your team every day. Welcome to the new Locked On NFL, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with the help of our local experts that you know, and they know your teams better than anyone else. I am your host, Tony, the Barber Wiggins, joined by Locked On NFL expert. I call him the counselor, top of the morning, Chris Carter.
What's going on, Tony? How you been?
Man, I'm telling you, I've been all right. You know,
No. You've been great because you know what? Football is back tonight, and we get to watch real NFL action. This lets me know everything's back to normal. No more having to kind of enjoy baseball and make stuff. No more having to watch preseason. We get to watch real action, and we got two great teams to talk about tonight.
We do. That's right. Here's what we're going to run down. We're going to end up talking about the Washington Brass making some nice, subtle moves. Right in the middle, we're going to talk about Jamar Chase chasing his bag, pun intended. We're going to start with the Ravens and the Chiefs, as we mentioned earlier. That is a huge, huge game. We appreciate you for making us your first listen of the day and for being an everydayer here on Locked On NFL, which is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to tune in again on Locked On NFL tomorrow. That madman, man. The madman Tyler Roller for more NFL coverage. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. That's right. PrizePicks sponsors today's show and all of our crossover episodes here, Locked On NFL. Let's just get to it, man. And let's just start talking about this game tonight. It is a huge game. We talked about the revenge factor where, Chris, it should not be a factor in tonight's game. That stuff is like baggage. In fact, Kevin Oestreicher of Locked On NFL and Locked On Ravens even mentioned that. I want to let you see what he said.
Brandon Stevens said it perfectly. Last year is last year. It's unfortunate. And if the Ravens win the Super Bowl this year, I'm sure there'll be some people who are like, man, they really could have gone back-to-back. If they beat Kansas City in the AFC Championship to go, then so be it. That is your revenge. The revenge does not come in the regular season. What this game does for the Ravens is it either gets them off to a good start or a bad start. That's what it does. It's not about taking back. You can't take back the AFC Championship in 2023 and say, yeah, we're taking it back. No, it's over. It's done. That season's in the rearview mirror. Mike McDonald's no longer in Baltimore. Patrick Queen, Geno Stone, all these guys, they're no longer there. So you flip the page, you have a team in front of you, and Roquan said it there. The Chiefs are in the way of what they're trying to do. The Chiefs are in the way of a great 1-0 start to the regular season against the two-time Super Bowl champions.
You know the NFC North better than anybody, man, or AFC North better than anybody. I like what Oestreicher said right there because I think thinking about last year is all baggage.
Yeah, it's just that's not how I think real football teams operate. I talk to coaches and players all the time. I'll be in the Steelers locker room later today, and no one's thinking about the last time. The most that you might look at that and say, hey, what did they do to us that hurt us last time? But you're not going to, if you need motivation, there's a classic quote. Chuck Noll, legendary Steelers coach, won the 4 Super Bowls in the 70s, set up basically the franchise to be what it is today. He used to say, if I have to motivate you, I'm going to fire you. And if you need the motivation of saying, oh, they beat us last year, we got to get them back, that'll last you for 5 minutes in the game. And then once you out into the first couple hits have been made and you got to process what's the next series, what are we doing here, what's our keys, you don't got time to worry about what happened last year outside of studying it just to understand, hey, these are the points that they're going to attack us. These are the keys I need to read. What thing did I miss that Patrick Mahomes got me with? Or what thing did we miss that we could have gotten more points on the board against the Chiefs? That's what the Ravens need to be focused on. And here's the thing. John Harbaugh's a great coach. Lamar Jackson's a great quarterback and a great leader. They have the guys on this roster to do this. Now, do they have guys missing? Sure. Patrick Queen's gone. They need Trenton Simpson to step up in his stead behind Roquan Smith. They lost Geno Stone. They need their secondary to make up for that. Arthur Maulet's on injured reserve. So like they got questions there. Not everything's lined up. But the last thing they need to be worried about is, they need to do this for 2023 and 2024. That's not even first on their mind. It's not even like fifth on their mind going into this game.
I totally agree with you. And the thing is motivation is like something that you always got to make sure like your keys when you're leaving the house. Let me go grab my motivation. Right. You think this dude's going to be like, hold on, man, I left my motivation. That's like me looking at you saying, Chris Carter, you left your character in the closet. Make sure you go get your character and your honesty today, right? You got to make sure you got it with you. I think I left my character at home. Let me turn around and go back before I cuss somebody out. It's just in football, you got to be who you are. It's got to be ingrained in your DNA. And it's like just like they say, next man up, and you got to have a short memory. Man, if that goes from play to play, I know damn well you ain't gonna sit here and be worried about something that happened last year, because guess what? Whatever happens in tonight's game with the Ravens, that ain't gonna win you no Super Bowl. I mean, so if you go, exactly. if you win that game tonight, what, you think you'll get a Lombardi trophy? No, just like you got to leave this one behind. The loss from last year should have been left behind. Now, I don't think when you talk about football character, there's a handful of teams that seem to have it. And these two teams that are playing tonight definitely have it because they've been a model of consistency. I anticipate a game that's going to be played very, very cleanly. And I always look at football like this. And I like to get your opinion on this. I always look at regular season games. When I'm in the press box, I go, okay, let me see what y'all been doing all week. All right, let me see what y'all been working on. Because I liken it to a Chris Brown concert. When you see Chris Brown in concert, you're looking at what they've been practicing. All those rehearsals. This is showtime, man. You ain't got time to be sitting there worried about stuff that happened last year. I saw Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers said, yeah, I think, he said something to the effect of he was thinking about that fumble all off season and he wants to go prove himself. I think he needs to leave that stuff alone, man, and just go play football.
I mean, that's the thing. Zay Flowers was trying to make a play on that moment. It was just a great play by the Chiefs to knock the ball out at the 1-inch line. Like that's the whole thing. Like if that Chiefs defender doesn't go in and knock that ball out and Zay Flowers gets in the end zone, maybe it's the Chiefs talking about they want revenge because the Ravens would have won that game. So I look at this and here's the thing. I think that a young team might fall for that. And that's Zay Flowers thinking about that. I mean, that is tough to knock out. Like there are players that when you miss a moment like that in a game like that, that follows you for so long. But he's also a second-year player now. So he's young, but like he going to get over it when he gets more action and he gets more opportunities to make plays. So like when that holds over your whole rookie off season and you're sitting there at home and then you're in the weight room thinking about it, lifting about it, that's one thing. That's a different thing. But when you get into this game, you need to be like, no, actually, like, I personally, I like Zay Flowers. I liked him in college. I thought he was fantastic in the ACC. And then I liked him when I saw him last year. And I'm like, man, if anything, you shouldn't necessarily change yourself other than to keep pushing yourself to get sharper at things. So don't let that distract you. But here's the thing. I don't think the Ravens got to worry about that. Again, they got the coach leadership. They've got the team leadership, just as the Chiefs do. Both of these teams are going to be out there. They're going to be ready. They're going to be focused. And I think that's going to make for some great Thursday night football to open up the season.
It will. It's on to the next one. And it's on to the next one with us, even though we're going to park right there in the AFC North because somebody's chasing a bag, and his name is Jamar Chase. We're going to talk about him, his prospects, and we're going to hit Jeff Lloyd, too. Jeff Lloyd got something he wants to tell everybody about the wide receiver core up in Cleveland. We'll do all of that just a second here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by PrizePicks. That's right, man. PrizePicks is so much fun. It's America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active users. That's right. Now listen, Caleb Williams passing gets you 1 win on PrizePicks every week in September. That's right. Only 1 yard. That's it. And you automatically win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss this deal on PrizePicks because it's gone when September ends. Now, all you got to do is get the player projections right, the stat projections. You're going more or less. That's it. And if you do 2 or more, between 2 and 6 projections, that money starts rolling in, man. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's the code is LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win, man, just to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Segment 2 here on Locked On NFL, where it's your team every day. We always thank you for making us your first listen. Wide receivers been getting paid. Wide receivers been getting paid like baseball players and basketball players. I wonder if it's going to end anytime soon because I looked up, Chris, and I saw the fact that all the real good ones already got their money. And we're trying to – I think they're trying to get ahead of something. We'll get to that in just a second, but the next guy up appears to be Jamar Chase over in Cincinnati. And then his running mate, he's going to want some money too, and T. Higgins. Let's hear what James Rapine has to say on their crossover when he was talking to Mike Debate about Jamar Chase and his availability this weekend.
Yeah, will Jamar Chase play? Will he get an extension? Do they go hand in hand? And I think that's what's interesting is Joe Burrow. Everyone knew the Bengals were going to pay Joe Burrow. And it took until Thursday night during the season opener of the NFL 2023 season for them to come to an agreement. We don't know that about Jamar Chase. And yet the unknown there could also mean that the Bengals are confident they're going to get it done. And so we just don't know. And are they going to? If they don't, will Jamar be willing to play, or is he practicing now, hoping that facilitates a deal and moves things in the right direction? There are so many questions and not many answers. But yeah, I think that there's a good chance that Jamar plays because he was on the practice field Wednesday. It leaves the door open for that. At the same time, I think there's still a very real possibility that he isn't on the field on Sunday.
This is a quandary. That's a real word, man. You've been to law school. You heard that word before, Chris. A quandary, because Jamar Chase was actually picked after T. Higgins, who has not gotten paid. I think Chase, if he's healthy, is going to roll out there and play even without a contract because I just think he's a dog like that. That's a hard thing to have to manage, man, when you got to pay 2 guys, and one is clearly better than the other one.
Yeah, the reason that T. Higgins did not get paid is because they knew they had to pay Jamar Chase after they had just paid Joe Burrow. You got to pick and choose who you're going to be your priorities. They want to keep T. Higgins around as long as they could. So they tagged him. They kept him around for the little bit that they can. T. Higgins going to get a bag next year because he's going to hit the open market, and I think he knows that. But Jamar Chase, I've said all along, it's funny. I've been asking behind the scenes to James and Jake over at Locked On Bengals, is this a real thing? Because I just look at, if you're the Bengals, what are we doing here? Sign Jamar Chase. You know that's your plan. Stop playing around with it. Get it done. They're like, I don't know, Chris. This is getting tight. We don't know what's going to happen. He showed up to practice Wednesday. That man going to play this weekend. They going to sign a new deal. They got it lined up. It's the wide receiver bubble right now. It keeps growing and growing and growing. These past couple years, Tyreek Hill is getting $30 million a year. Brandon Ayuk now getting $30 million a year. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's got $30.02 million a year. AJ Brown, $32 million a year. CeeDee Lamb, $34 million a year. Justin Jefferson, $35 million a year. So what is Jamar Chase probably going to get? Probably going to get like $36 million a year, something like that. They're working something out. I've been saying all along, I don't buy into this. He's not going to show up and play. The Bengals know they need him. He knows they need him. They're gonna sit down at the table, hammer out a contract, get it done, and he'll be there. Now, the question will be though is this the end for now for the rising of the top receivers, because you look at some of those receivers I named, right? Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown. T. Higgins isn't in that caliber. Like, I'd put him in the caliber just below that. Like, he's a great receiver, but those are the best of the best. And when you look at that, maybe T. Higgins gets in that money range simply because he's on the open market. And the open market is where you get really paid in the NFL, because teams are bidding over you and it's a war to get you. But at the same time, I don't think anyone's mistaken him for that. I think that there might not be a receiver coming up for several years that is of those three's caliber, at least when they're looking to get paid by. So I think that there's a good chance that Jamar Chase gets this deal done by the time y'all are listening to this show or watching this show. And then we're breaking it down later. But the more I look at it, I'm just like, this has been a foregone conclusion. It's the same thing. I've covered the Steelers with several holdouts. TJ Watt, everyone's like, oh, what's they going to get paid? TJ Watt comes in, gets paid like the Wednesday or Thursday before the season begins. There was one time years ago, before I even covered it, but there's a story that all the older writers tell me with the Steelers. There was Troy Polamalu had not signed an extension all throughout training camp. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, because the Steelers, they have a policy. They don't do business on extensions once the season begins unless you're a quarterback. And Troy Polamalu literally signed his extension walking onto the team plane to go to the week 1 game. So, like, they gonna find a way in Cincinnati to make this work.
Yeah, man, they better find a way to make it work. Jamar Chase is top 3, and I don't think he's number 3. T. Higgins is a good player. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. It's going to be interesting to see what Pittsburgh, what your team does with George Pickens when that time comes, especially if he gets adequate quarterback play. One down the line I'm going to look at, and I'm going to look at it early because he wasn't a first-round pick, and he's going to get to the money real quick, is Puka Nacua. I really want to see if they decide that, he's just good for us. If the league says, he's like Cooper Kupp, that ain't going to work everywhere, and are the Rams ever going to pay him the value of his statistics, or are they going to pay him based on what he does for them? It's hard to really sometimes figure out a wide receiver leaving one team if he's played well and if he goes somewhere else. It's also hard to figure out when one doesn't play well and he seems to go somewhere else. My man Jeff Lloyd over there in Cleveland, since we're staying in the in the AFC North, he seems to think that Jerry Jeudy is going to break out. I want you to hear what he said.
But this is more about Jerry Jeudy. Now, Jerry Jeudy's career best in the NFL to this point, 67 receptions, 972 yards, and 6 touchdowns. This was done in the 2022 season. I do believe Jerry Jeudy is going to smash each and every one of those records. I believe he's going to put up new career highs across the board in receptions, in yardage, in touchdowns. I believe it is going to start Sunday against the Dallas Cowboys. I think Jerry Jeudy is absolutely chomping at the bit. Felt, underappreciated, underutilized. Look, at the end of the day, your production is your production, and that is how you are measured. But unfortunately and unfairly at times, you can't throw the ball to yourself.
All my years of being a barber, sometimes people would say something and I had to give them advice. Sometimes people would say something that was their truth and I didn't really believe it or subscribe to it. So my answer was always fair enough. You just don't you don't sit here and bust nobody's bubble. But I'm gonna turn the floor over to you, sir, and let you respond to my man Jeff.
I mean, sure. I guess Jerry Jeudy can break all his personal records. He better. Here's my thing: Jerry Jeudy better do something. Like, this is a 15th overall pick that the Browns just paid money to. So I look at that and I think that, like, man, like, dude, you ain't lived up to the hype. Like, this man ain't got 1,000 yards yet, and yet he had 100 catches, 2 years ago. But I look at that and I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like, I got to see it. And he was fantastic in college. He was part of the, that amazing receiving core that came out of Alabama that year. But I mean, like, I don't know, man. Like, I look at it like his last year. George Pickens has played 2 years for the Steelers, and he's had better numbers in his first 2 years than Jerry Jeudy had last year. And don't give me that, he wasn't in a conducive situation because George Pickens had Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, and Matt Canada to work with. Like, no, like I think Jerry Jeudy got to sell. And hey, maybe he does. Maybe he does. But as I say all the time, whatever Jeff gives his predictions is that at the beginning of every year we do the AFC North locked on division talk and we do our predictions. It is the 6th straight year I have done one with Jeff Lloyd, and every single year he picks the Steelers to finish last. So it's never happened since 1989, and maybe one day it will happen. But until it does, that man is batting 0 for. So I'm just gonna leave that there when it comes to predictions about what happens.
All right, well, look, the Jaguars have to play Cleveland in week 2, and Cleveland's a pretty good team, so I ain't going to talk too loud.
They got a good roster.
But you know what I appreciate about Jeff? I appreciate the petty. He's supposed to pick y'all last. He's supposed to pick this. I appreciate the petty.
Is he?
That's what local experts do, especially when you bleed brown and orange, brother. Pick them last. Tyler Rowland picked the Jaguars to finish last this year, and I know he don't mean it, but he wants it to happen, so he said it. So that's just what I appreciate the petty, bro.
I get it. Though.
That's all I can tell you. I appreciate the petty, man. I love fans that do stuff like that. Listen, the new Locked On NFL is here. Locked On NFL is now 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland, who I just mentioned, he kicks off the morning with a double shot of NFL Espresso, and then stop by the barbershop. That's me, Tony Wiggins, for some real NFL talk. Add in the Locked On local experts like CC, and you get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice a day. Make the madman Tyler Rowland and me, Tony Wiggins, the barber, your second listen at the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. We're going to talk about a team that has done some sound things early in their regime in the nation's capital. We'll make sure we get to all of that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, man, if you're like me and you opened a small business before and you're wearing a lot of hats, you're dealing with contractors, you're also dealing with regulations, you forget to hire staff. That's all right. LinkedIn will handle that for you. LinkedIn Jobs is the absolute truth because it isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else. And even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place, man. You really, really are. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats, they might not have time or resources to hire people. That's all right. All you got to do is post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Why don't you be next? Remember, LinkedIn Jobs/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, third segment here on Locked On NFL. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Make sure you go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code in all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Today's episode and all of our crossover episodes are brought to you by PrizePicks. All right, Chris, a lot of talk in Washington. I remember when they were trying to hire the coordinator from Detroit, there were some things that came out. I don't know if he said it, if it was paraphrased, but he kind of said there are a lot of people that have too big of opinions about football that don't have a background in football. So I was wondering how that was going to go with them delegating authority. They've made some pretty sound and definitive decisions early on. Let's listen to our man David Harrison from Locked On NFL and Locked On Commanders.
It's a 4-year deal, $74 million, more than $45 million guaranteed for the well-deserving interior offensive lineman Sam Cosmi and the Washington Commanders. This is David Harrison of the Locked On Commanders podcast. And big news breaking, first day of practice for the regular season, week 1 preparation before Tampa Bay. Adam Peters, general manager of the Commanders, getting his all-pro caliber, Pro Bowl caliber right guard locked down for a 4-year extension. That means Sam Cosmi's got 5 more seasons under contract with the Washington Commanders. It is a big move as this team looks to stabilize their roster, stabilize their offensive line, and provide long-term protection for rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels. Sam Cosmi said He feels blessed. He's grateful for the opportunity, grateful to be here. And I know that Jaden Daniels is also grateful to have Sam Cosmi blocking for him for the entirety of his rookie contract. For more on this and everything Washington Commanders, check out the Locked On Commanders podcast 5 days a week, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to my man, David Harrison, man, my partner in crime. You can see him with me every Wednesday, just like you see Chris Carter every Thursday. I heard a siren in the background, too. I don't know what the hell going on up in Nation's Capital, man. I thought he was about to start running in a second, but, that's my old stomping ground up there. But this is huge because I think it shows, especially after they made the decision that they were going to move on from Jahan Dotson and they traded him, who they picked in the first round a couple of years ago. They retained a bodyguard for their young quarterback in Sam Cosmi. There is nothing more important, and I know it's so cliche to say this, there's nothing more important for a young quarterback than to have protection up front. Good on good for Washington making this infrastructure move, in my opinion, and showing that they do understand what it takes to build the infrastructure of a football team.
Listen, a part of this here is, you got to remember the Commanders are under complete new ownership. That there has been, as a person who talks to people, I have heard some crazy stories about how Dan Snyder used to run that team. Just day to day, just the willy-nilly decisions that he would make, the whims that he would be. Coaches would be scared to work for him because they knew if they went there, even if as soon as they lost a couple games, they knew that they were going to be out the door. The lack of structure and the lack of organizational integrity, that is something that I always take account for when I'm looking at teams and I'm looking at how they might do. Is like, look, you might have been hot for a year or two, but your organization ain't all that, and normally crumbles from within on things. And that's something that the Commanders have been dealing with for decades now. And, talk to guys like LeVar Arrington who saw it up close and are now in the media doing their thing. They'll tell you that. But this is new brass, as you said. This is new leadership. They're trying to set a new tone. And I think that this is a good start. I need to see it follow through with a lot more other decisions to couple with it. But I do think this is along the way there. But it's just a sign that, hey, for example, I live in Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh Pirates have been acquiring talent. They got Paul Skeens, who everyone looks like that's the best rookie in Major League Baseball. They got O'Neal Cruz, who can hit the ball in the river in Pittsburgh. He hits the ball so hard. They got all this talent. And all season long, I was like, when they were starting to get really good, they're starting to rise up. I'm like, this is the Pirates. They know how to mess things up. And lo and behold, they're messing things up left and right. They just got no hit and lost 12-0 last night. I look at that. But when there's big changes, like especially in ownership and in the front office, I say, hey, I give everyone a new chance. That's where Washington's at right now. They're making these moves. I like this on paper. I want to see how this team comes together because this is also a team that needs to figure out who they are very quickly. But I do think this is a good sign that, hey, maybe they are in for a brighter day moving forward.
I think they are. I saw Jim Harbaugh, who I have an immense amount of respect for, go out and draft an offensive tackle with the 5th overall pick, and he said that is a weapon. Our offensive linemen are weapons, and you know what? You don't appreciate them until you don't have people that can block. Trust me, I covered the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence ran for his life last year. You get a real good appreciation for those guys when your quarterback is upright, and this is all about protecting Jaden Daniels. Now, a quarterback that has been very, very successful the last few years is going to be missing a number one wideout. Alex Clancy did a crossover with Joe Marino as the Cardinals and the Bills are going to play this week. And the question came up about who Josh Allen was going to be able to throw the ball to. Take a listen.
I think it's aggressive to say Hernandez and Gronk. I mean, that's a really special pair. I think there's a lot of upside with this pair of tight ends that the Bills have in Kincaid and Dawson Knox. And they do want to be a 12 personnel team. I think you're going to see the Bills with 2 tight ends on the field at least 30% of the time, 40%, maybe even higher against Arizona. And I think as long as those tight ends are healthy, I think that's what they want to be. And so it's about creating matchups, right? You have 2 tight ends like that are, Kincaid certainly on of upside in the passing game and Knox more of a traditional player. That helps you force matchups. And whether the defense wants to match up with bigger people, that's fine. Then they don't really have the athleticism to match up. If they want to put smaller players on the field to keep up athletically. Well, now they're not big enough. And I think the Bills want to try to dictate terms in that capacity. And the root of that is this tight end duo of Kincaid and Knox.
You need an alpha receiver in order to win some games.
I do think having a number one wide receiver is a big part of your game, especially when you play the way the Bills want to play. You play the way that you have a supreme offense. You're paid through your quarterback. You got talent around it. You want to have him have a star receiver to work out with your guy, and that's where I do think the Bills could run into problems this year. Now, I'll also point this out, Tony. Who was the Chiefs' star receiver last year? Was it someone that was big on the outside? Rashee Rice was their receiver that was the guy that was living on the outside, right? And so I look at that and I think, it certainly helps to have that number one guy. That's what a lot of teams. But if you're putting a lot of faith in your quarterback, which the Bills are doing in Josh Allen, you could be all that. You could make that work. But I think you also have to have around that a whole team of guys around him that makes everything else. Well, the Steelers are going to be working with two tight ends, but they got George Pickens right there. I do think the Bills are going to need a Keon Coleman or a Curtis Samuel to step up and be a big playmaker. Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox are not going to be enough, but I do think if Josh Allen, if he can prove to be the field general that makes the on-time decisions, that keeps everything in line, he can guide them through this. And if he can do that, I think that kind of not eliminates the problem of a wide receiver one issue, but I do think it can mitigate it and give the Bills some time as they continue to develop Keon Coleman for the future.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for them, I think, to beat real good teams because I think people are going to be able to game plan against them and take that away. They got to run the football, trust their offensive line. Now I think Josh is going to be trying to run a little bit too much and is probably going to end up getting him banged up. I tell you what, we got football tonight, man. I am ready. I am hyped for the NFL season. Make sure you tap in to Locked On NFL for the latest news. Twice a day now. It's twice a day. The Madman Tyler Rowland will kick you off in the morning, and I know he's going to be previewing or reviewing the game that we discussed earlier with the Ravens and the Chiefs. I'm so glad. He's probably going to do a little preview, too, about the Brazil game with the Packers as well as the Eagles. All right? So you get that NFL Espresso in the morning and come back to me and get the barbershop in the afternoon. Add in the local experts and you get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL. It's twice a day. Make the Madman Tyler Rowland and the barber Tony Wiggins your second listen at the new Locked On NFL on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Counselor, I will see you again here next Thursday. This is what we're going to do every single Thursday. For Chris Carter, for Tony Wiggins, thank you for joining us here on Locked On NFL, and we'll see you next time.